Travel along, Catholic pilgrims, as we learn from St. Augustine, Doctor of the Church, while we read his book, Confessions. Welcome, Catholic pilgrims. We have a bit of a longer reading today, so let's jump right in. We are reading from Book 5, Chapter 3, on page 92. In the sight of my God, I will describe the 29th year of my age. A Manichaean bishop named Faustus had recently arrived at Carthage. He was a great decoy of the devil, and many people were trapped by his charming manner of speech. This I certainly admired, but I was beginning to distinguish between mere eloquence and the real truth, which I was so eager to learn. The Manichees talked so much about this man Faustus that I wanted to see what scholarly fare he would lay before me, and I did not care what words he used to garnish the dish. I had already heard that he was very well versed in all the higher forms of learning, and particularly in the liberal sciences. I had read a great many scientific books, which were still alive in my memory. When I compared them with the tedious tales of the Manichees, it seemed to me that of the two, the theories of the scientists were the more likely to be true. For their thoughts could reach far enough to form a judgment about the world around them, though they found no trace of Him who is master of it. You, Lord, who are so high above us, yet look with favor on the humble, look on the proud too, but from far off. You come close only to men who are humble at heart. The proud cannot find you, even though by dint of study they have skill to number stars and grains of sand, to measure the tracks of constellation and trace the paths of planets. The reason and understanding by which they investigate these things are gifts they have from you. By means of them, they have discovered much and foretold eclipses of the sun and moon many years before they happened. They calculated the day and the hour of the eclipse, and whether it would be total or partial, and their reckonings were found correct because it all happened as they had predicted. They wrote down the principles which they had discovered, and their books are still read and used to forecast the year, the month, the day, and the hour of eclipses of the sun and moon, and the degree of their totality. And these eclipses will take place just as they foretell. These powers are a source of wonder and astonishment to men who do not know the secrets. But the astronomers are flattered and claim the credit for themselves. They lapse into pride without respect for you, my God, and fall into shadow away from your light. But although they can predict an eclipse of the sun so far ahead, they cannot see that they themselves are already in the shadow of eclipse. This is because they ignore you and do not inquire how they came to possess the intelligence to make these researches. Even when they discover that it was you who made them, they do not submit to you so that you may preserve what you have made, nor, such as their own efforts have made them, do they offer themselves to you in sacrifice. Their conceit soars like a bird. Their curiosity probes the deepest secrets of nature like a fish that swims in the sea, and their lust grows fat like a beast at pasture. But they slaughter none of these. Yet if they make this sacrifice to you, O God, you are the consuming fire that can burn away their love for these things and recreate the men in immortal life. They do not know Christ, who is the way and the word of God, by which you created all the things which they number and count, the very men who count them, the senses by which they are aware of what they count, and the intelligence by which they count them. Your wisdom is inscrutable, but your only begotten Son was given to us to be our wisdom, our justification, and our sanctification. He was counted as one of our number, and he paid his dues to Caesar. Yet these men do not know that he is the way by which they must come down from the heights where they have set themselves and rise again with him to be with him. They do not know this way, but think themselves as high and as bright as the stars. And this is why they have fallen to earth and their senseless hearts grow benighted. Much of what they say about the created world is true, but they do not search with piety for the truth, its creator. This is why they do not find him. Or, if they do find him and have the knowledge of God, they do not honor him or give thanks to him as God. They become fantastic in their notions. They, who claim to be so wise, attribute to themselves what is yours, and in the same perverse blindness, they try to ascribe their own qualities to you. They even attribute falsehoods to you who are truth itself. They exchange the glory of the imperishable God for representations of perishable man, of bird and beast and reptile. They exchange your truth for a lie, reverencing and worshiping the creature in preference to the Creator. All the same, I remembered many of the true things that they had said about the created world, and I saw that their calculations were borne out by mathematics, the regular succession of the seasons, and the visible evidence of the stars. I compared it all with the teaching of Maines, who had written a great deal on these subjects, all of it extremely incoherent. But in his writings, I could find no reasonable explanation of the solstices and the equinoxes, or of eclipses and similar phenomena, such as I had read about in books written by secular scientists. Yet I was expected to believe what he had written, although it was entirely at variance and out of keeping with the principles of mathematics and the evidence of my own eyes. Okay, so we have a lot of interesting things going on here today. St. Augustine is giving us a bit of a diary entry for his 29th year of life, but now as an older man. He tells us that a bishop for the Manichees had come to Carthage at that time, and his name was Faustus, and Augustine was interested to hear what he had to say. But what we see here is that serious doubts about Manichaeism is starting to creep into his mind. Augustine has heard all the tales the Manichees put forth, but he is just not quite buying it anymore. He is starting to, quote unquote, trust the science, as we say today, though he is starting to trust it in a good way. He says, quote, "When I compared them with the tedious tales of the Manichees, it seems to me of the two, the theories of the scientists were the more likely to be true," unquote. Now, just like me with the age of the earth and trying to reconcile that with my Protestant beliefs, St. Augustine is finding the science to be more true than the Manichaean teachings. But we do have to be careful here. As I've said before, science is just a tool to understand the created world. It is not the end-all be-all. There are things that science cannot explain, and that's okay. It's not meant to explain everything, but there are many people that treat science as a religion. Some people only look to science for answers, and because studying things scientifically, we can come to understand a lot and invent a lot, people can sometimes swell with pride and think themselves almost like gods. When speaking of some scientists in his day, St. Augustine says, quote, "They lapse into pride without respect for you, my God, and fall into shadow away from your light," unquote. So we must be careful. Science can't explain everything. And also, many scientists today are not properly using the scientific method because they want to push an agenda. Now, on the other hand, we can't dismiss all science just because we don't trust certain authorities. And we can't dismiss it all because we don't want to become irrational people. My Air Force husband has seen the curvature of the Earth in a jet, yet there are some people who would dismiss his clear observations and the numerous other ones proving the roundness of the Earth. And the people would dismiss it because they just don't trust institutions anymore, which is the institution's fault. But still, we have to be smart people. We also can't go around believing every supposed miracle out there just because we read it on the internet. The church takes miracles very seriously and investigates them thoroughly. Oftentimes, what happens is that someone declares a miracle has occurred, like a Marian apparition, and certain people immediately believe it. And then when the church investigates and shows that no real miracle occurs, these people still cling to the error. And the reason people do this is because they don't want to believe that they would willingly believe in something false. So they double down and ignore facts and logic. We must be humble enough to admit when we are wrong, that we don't know everything, and we have to be intellectually honest enough to drop something when it has been proven to not be true. St. Augustine is starting to shed the Manichaeism religion because, just like that one bishop said he would, he is starting to reason his way out of it. Which is good, because God gave us our intellect and our reason so that we can find the truth. We just have to be willing to drop things that we once thought were true, that we find to not be true, and keep moving forward towards the real truth, which is God. We will pause here for today, Catholic Pilgrims. Join me tomorrow, and until then, live the faith boldly and travel well.